Okay, broskies, let's do the test again, right? This time around, we are using Elaine on my own account. Do take note that she's at R0, okay? And I understand that when she's at R2, she's going to start ignoring all the defense onto enemies that are asleep. That is the R2 effect as well, which makes her an R2 expert in my opinion. Okay, but for the most part, let's test out her damage based on some of the equipments that I'm able to provide for her on this, well, a more built account. So I have plus 2835 attack and I have plus 155% crit damage, which is definitely a lot better than the other Elaine that I showcased in my PTR account. So let's take a look at what is the potential damage on the same enemies, but do take note that this enemy has like 1400 defense, which is not much and is definitely not reliable as a point of comparison as compared to like using her against PvP, for example, right? Using her against RTA opponents. There is going to be a major difference, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to buff up all the necessary buffs and all the necessary debuffs. So here we have the defense break. Well, thanks for the animation. We have the defense break, we have the sleep, we have actually it's just a defense break and the sleep that is necessary here, and the attack buff as well. So let's test out our third skill. So let's see how much damage we can do. 14,178, and thanks for the clarification. So the rest of the damage that was smaller was not actually the non-defense ignoring damage, that was actually the death damage. And the reason why the death damage is a lot smaller is because after the enemy dies, they drop all their debuffs. So like their defense break, for example, that goes away. So that's the reason why that damage number is smaller, so we can only rely on the first hit to determine what her final damage is gonna look like. So that was 14,000. Okay, test number 2, let's see how much we do. 16,186. So if you multiply that by 5, right, that's at least 80,000 damage on that one enemy. So it's very close to whatever they have predicted, her being able to do up to 80,000 damage on an enemy who has 1,400 defense. That is actually quite impactful, especially for PvP. But let's try to be a little bit more realistic. Let's try to fight against an Esper who has a more reliable defense, for example. Okay, so let's take a look at maybe our Gabriel here. How much defense do we have? We have 2,400 defense. So let's try to realign the enemies according to 2,400 defense, which is maybe something like this. Okay, they have somewhere close to 3,000, which is also fine. This is quite possible as well, level 80 enemies. Let's test out what her damage output is gonna look like. Okay, so test number 1 on an enemy with like, I think 2,800 plus defense, right? So let's see, third skill, let's go. Wow, thanks for the freaking animation. Now I won't be able to see the damage numbers that clearly. 9,000 and 11,000, right? Yeah, so it was around 9,000 and 11,000. So if we ignored all the defense, that will push our final damage up to about 55 to 56k, which, like I said, is probably not going to be enough to one-shot a lot of stuff. But you know what, let's just take a look at this one more time. Because do understand that in PvP, there is something called the PvP HP boost. So if you're in 0.118, for example, that PvP HP boost increases your total HP by 25%. So in most cases, you will be facing enemies with about 100,000 HP. I mean, potentially you will be facing an enemy with like 100,000 HP, or if not, usually it's around a range of like 80k, and that is definitely not one-shot potential. Okay, so let's test out our numbers again. Hopefully we don't get an animation. Okay, nice. 9,300 and 11,000 plus. Okay, so yeah, so that is probably the damage range that we're looking at. Essentially, it's going to be about 56, 57k based on my current stats, which is not much, but also do take note that we do not have an attack lead over here, right? But I think in terms of like RTA content, you're probably not going to be running an attack lead anyway. You probably want to run a speed lead instead. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below how you feel about her damage output. And we are going to proceed with the rest of today's video, which is number 1, taking a look at how she works in Phobetor. And number 2, taking a look at how she works in Fafnir. And number 3, taking a look at how she works in Sonica. So basically, in this setup, Elaine is just replacing where KFC used to be. And if you're not sure who KFC is, she's just basically Li Guang. Okay, so let's take a look at how this run works. I have not actually tested this at all. This is like the first time I'm doing it. So the speed order and all that is completely out of the window. Like, I don't think anything makes sense over here. Okay, but something might make sense, and that is Yun Chuan being a little bit faster than her. Okay, and she kills 26k without an attack buff. A bit yikes. Just a little bit yikes. I mean, for DPS Esper at least. 24k on a defense break. And I do understand that we killed the enemy, so that means that the rest of our attacks did not inflict defense broken damage, which is definitely going to be part of the calculation. That's for sure. But still, it's a little bit on the low side. And I do understand that I do not have an attack buff here. But honestly, Esper's like Yunchuan, he can do a lot more damage on his third skill, I feel. Okay, we have a defense break here. Okay, Yunchuan can do 22k, fine. Boom, boom, boom. 70,000 damage. Okay, oh, that's not bad. That is not bad, but it's not as high as, like, I don't know, maybe Lin, for example. I think Lin can probably hit like 100,000 damage. So Lin has that advantage. I'm not actually very sure why that's the case as well. I mean, we have... Oh, right, because we are not ignoring defense here. Okay. Yeah, so the reason why we are dealing lower damage is because we are just simply multi-hitting. We are not dealing defense ignoring damage. So her being at R2 is probably quite essential because not only does she guarantee a defense ignoring damage on the sleeping enemies, right? She also has a chance to ignore defense on non-sleeping enemies as well. So her R2 is probably going to be quite essential if you want her to be like very powerful in Fafnir, for example. Or any of the boss runs, right? Any of the bosses. Sonica, maybe not Phobetor. Phobetor, you can still sleep him, so that's still fine. 32,000 on a normal attack with a defense break. That is okay. That is decent. Alright, so that's it. Let's take a look at the damage numbers here. And like I said, right, this is just an R0 Elaine with no skill ups at all. So let's compare her to Yunchuan, for example. Yunchuan is like the only other... Okay, wait. It's not really fair comparison because Yunchuan is gonna obviously do more damage, yeah. Obviously. And for some reason, even Gabrielle is doing more damage than her. I am not particularly sure why this is the case. Maybe it's related to the fact that Gabrielle probably didn't get frozen all that much. I'm not sure. I wasn't really paying attention to Gabrielle. I didn't know she was going to do so much damage, but clearly you can see that there is a very big disparity between herself and maybe other damage dealers. I'm very sure that Li Guang or KFC is able to do a lot more damage than this, even if she gets frozen. So that's something to take note of. Alright, so now let's take a look at Phobetor, and this is the lineup that I'm going to be running her with, just team 1, right? So I'm going to try to use her with Embla and just see how the synergy works because we need a lot of multi-hits in order to get Embla's Corrupted Seed to go boom boom. Okay, so this is going to be the main combo here, and I kind of feel like there is enough on this lineup. So there is Sleep, there is Disease as well. You know what, enough talking, let's take a look at how this works. I'm actually quite curious to compare the DPS between between herself and Embla. Nice, we got a defense break. 74,000. Okay. Not... Okay, her DPS lost to Sender over there. But yeah, lost to Sender again, right? But I must say that she's R0, so that's possibly one of the reasons why. I mean, Sender is just... Okay, come on, let's be fair, okay? Sender is an S-tier Esper, okay? You can't really compare an S-tier Esper with someone who's probably not S-tier. I don't know, I'm like super confused. I'm like super freaking confused. 142,000 on Sender. 85k on Elaine. It's like Sender's second skill is already doing 85k. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, okay, she's not fully skilled up, right? I'm just coping right now. But she's not fully skilled up, so that's probably... Oh, look! Without defense break, Sender did 80k. Oh my god, his normal attack. Wasn't that his normal attack that did 91k? I'm not actually very sure. Maybe not, maybe not. Oh yeah, that was not his. That was like his second skill. His normal attack does 42k. Okay, so... Clearly, in terms of single target damage, she loses out. And I think Sender is still more powerful. And the reason why I say that is because Sender still has stuns on his second and third skill. It's not as if Elaine is the only Esper in this game who has controls on her second and third skill. That is not the case at all. Sender has controls. He has really good controls. He has AP reductions, he has stuns. Very nice kit. Of course, his second 175k, look at that. Of course, his second skill is not able to land a stun all the time. He has a 50% proc chance. And I think at like R6 or is it R4 or something like that. But still, I feel like Sender is still going to be a lot more impactful in RTA. As he's super meta in RTA. His damage output is good, his speed is high. And I know this is turning into a Sender showcase, but I'm just trying to explain my train of thought as to how I'm going to think of ways to use her based on the already free options that we have, like Sender for example. But I'm liking the fact that we are able to sleep the boss pretty often, which is why we don't even need healers at all. And we're actually doing a pretty fine job. I mean, we're not dealing like an insane, unthinkable amount of damage to the boss, but it does really help that every single one of Elaine's attacks will sleep the boss. So it might be essential to actually skill up Elaine if you want her to be like fully effective, if you want her to cycle her skills much better. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cut to the chase and see our stats after this run. Okay, you know what? I'm actually just gonna end the fight here so that I don't have to wait too long. So we are still gonna get EX++, it's still gonna work. Alright, so let's take a look at the damage comparison between our main espers here. Oh my god, there is no comparison at all. And Embla here, she is primarily focused more on AoE damage, but she's still dealing so much single target damage over here. Holy shit, there is really no comparison between Elaine and any of your major single target damage dealers. There's absolutely no way. I mean, I want to try to be polite because I messed up on Elaine a couple of times right now, but I am not really seeing what I want to see. Now, as for Sonica, which is going to be our final showcase for today, I'm going to be running her on a second team, obviously. The first team is just going to trigger her to enter her second phase, and that's where Elaine comes in. I'm not going to use her as the crit rate lead, but I might want to have to shift up my espers a little bit. Actually, I was thinking about it, and I find it quite impossible to shift the espers around. I kind of need the attack buff, I need a defense break, and I need these guys to multi-hit. I need Sally here for the protection, and therefore I'm left with herself, which means I'm probably just going to run with the crit rate lead just because my crit rate is not capped, and I guess that's going to help a little bit. Okay, so for this video, let's not focus too much on her single damage, let's focus more on her damage as compared to the other espers. Like, let's say we have the White Twin here, who is actually not built as a DPS, right? He's built as a control. Let's see his damage against a control White Twin. And of course, we have the Black Twin here, who is a little bit slow, but he's gonna scale according to the White Twin. So I want to just see whether is she really good in this regard as compared to the Black Twin. Because we know how effective the Black Twin is, and we know that his DPS tends to lose out to the likes of, I don't know, Jiangman for example. So let's take a look at Elaine in Sonica. Now, one more thing that you might want to think about is me running her as a lead gives me crit rate leader buff, right? I mean, yeah, it's a crit rate leader buff, but as opposed to Louis, who has an attack lead, who does basically the same things, is Louis actually better than Elaine, right? Because Louis also multi-hits a lot, he has ignore defense on his kit, he does bleeding stacks, which is like useless, he has seer debuff, which is useful, so he also carries the attack lead, which is better than a crit rate lead any day. Is she necessarily going to be better than Louis, even for Sonica? Because if I were to replace her with Louis, I would have an attack lead. I would still have multi-hits. I would have a seer debuff as well. Yeah, big questions over there. But obviously, she still carries value in Fafnir just because she steals buffs. So she's instantly... Oh wait, hold on. Louis also steals buffs. But Louis has an 18% chance to steal buff, which is not enough. Okay, fine. So she does win Louis in that sense. It's pretty interesting that we're comparing her to epic espers, by the way. Alright, so let's take a look at our second team here, and a bit of a lag. I want to see some defense breaks. Alright, defense breaks, nice. So DPS time, 55k. And mind you, okay, I know I'm not supposed to be looking too much at their DPS, but oh my god. The Black Twin already did so much more damage. Like on his third skill, right? Am I going crazy? Like 45k? Okay, that's 30k on an AoE attack. I want to see the Black Twin attack again with an attack lead. That is 78k without an attack lead, attack buff. Okay, now big DPS, 74k. And Endless Knight, 96k. Okay, you're dealing a little bit more damage than the Black Twin. 54k on the Black Twin's AoE attack, 93k. Okay, sure. Okay, fine. So in Sonica, she's still gonna do well because we have a lot of debuffs on the boss. As you can see, it's easy for us to stack debuffs, especially when using her with the twins. So actually, this team actually kind of makes sense in that sense. So we're actually thriving on the fact that we have so many debuffs on the boss. Because our second skill scales according to debuffs, right? That's why we're able to deal stuff like 93k, which I think is okay. So that's one point where she excels against Louis. But yeah, at the same time, I need to think of a way for us to have an attack lead here. Or maybe we can reduce our crit rates so that we can run the crit rate lead and at the same time build more attack power maybe. Yeah, maybe that's gonna be like the better way forward. So I'm not sure whether I would like to skill up Elaine at all. I don't think I'm willing to make that sacrifice to even like just to test her out at all. I don't think it actually makes a lot of sense. Because in terms of efficacy, she is definitely not necessary at all. Like I have Louis, right? And I have Sander. So I have those covered. And Sander has a better typing as well. Well, in terms of like single target damage. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. This run is basically done. I will show you the stats after this run is done. But let me know your thoughts about Elaine thus far. What are you seeing that I am not seeing? Where else could she be possibly good for? We've talked about RTA and I've talked about how Sander is still currently the meta. He's still very heavily involved in RTA right now. So in that sense, does it really make sense for you to have Elaine when you already have Sander? Let me know your thoughts about Elaine, and I'm very curious to know if there are ways that I could have improved on this showcase as well. Alright, let's take a look at our scores, and I'm probably going to compare across the board as well. Alright, so screw Sonica, man, she's so freaking hard. That's not what she said. Okay, so Sander, okay, wait, we shouldn't talk too much about the first team because these guys are not dealing damage at all. Okay, so Elaine, what? 425k. The Black Twin, 1 million plus, more than twice the amount of damage that Elaine was doing. Okay, 1 million. Let's take a look at Yunchuan, who is close to 1 million. Very nice. So actually, the Black Twin is dealing quite a massive amount of damage. And Ophelia as well, 1.3 million. But I guess for the final team, they did have the advantage of the attack lead as well. But if we were to subtract the attack lead, that's not going to put her on par with anything else, I think. Not even for the fact that the boss had a ton of debuffs. Okay, so that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed today's content. If you did, don't forget to thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Derry Free to Play. And as always, I will see you in the next video.